All right, let's talk about a journey. A really transformative one, actually. It's this path that takes us from a really hidden, corrosive sin and leads us to this beautiful, freeing new way of life. So let's just dive right in.
Okay, so here's a thought for you. What if the oldest sin in the book, the one that's kind of the foundation for all the others, isn't something obvious, like rage or greed? What if it's way sneakier than that? What if it actually hides in your best qualities? Like, it disguises itself as wisdom, or success, or, get this, even humility. I mean, that's the real danger of pride, isn't it? It's the one sin that can feel like you're doing something right. It convinces us the problem is always, well, out there, with someone else.
Okay, so that brings us to our first section here, pride, the unseen enemy. And look, before we can even think about a cure, we have to get the diagnosis right. And pride, well, pride is that great spiritual disease. It's the unseen enemy that we really need to drag into the light.
So let's get really clear on what we're talking about here. Pride isn't just, confidence or having a strong backbone. No. It's a fundamental dislocation. It's this deep down belief that we are the center of our own universe, that we're the final authority. It's basically an internal declaration of independence from God himself.
And this right here is why it's so critical to understand. Pride isn't just another sin you can tick off a list. Oh no, it's the soil. It's the fertile ground where everything else grows. Think about it. Lust whispers, I deserve this. Greed says, I need more than God provides. Envy screams, I should have what they have. It all starts right here, in the soil of pride.
So now, let's get into the many masks of pride. This is where it gets really interesting, because pride is a master of disguise. It doesn't always strut around and boast. Sometimes it just whispers. Sometimes it even cowers.
Okay, check this out. Arrogance is constantly screaming, look at me, right? But insecurity, well, it's just as obsessed with the self. It's constantly asking, what do they think of me? You see? Both questions put me right in the spotlight. One thinks way too highly of itself, and the other just thinks of itself constantly. They're two sides of the exact same coin.
And it gets even sneakier. Pride can take perfectly good things and weaponize them. It can take theological truth, for example, and turn it into a club to beat people with just to prove its own superiority. And it can even perform humility, bowing down low, not because it's genuinely surrendered, but because it wants applause for how lowly it is. It's all a performance designed to put the self right back on center stage.
And this all leads us to our next major point, a war on the throne. Because, this isn't just about self-help or personal development, this is about cosmic allegiance. Pride puts us on a direct collision course with the creator of the entire universe.
You see it right here in James 4:6. God opposes the proud, but gives grace to the humble. Now, that word for opposes, it's actually a military term. It means God literally sets himself in battle formation against the proud heart. And you have to ask why. Well, it's because pride tries to steal God's throne. It's not just a character flaw, it's an act of rebellion, and God will not share his glory.
So, okay, if that's the diagnosis, what in the world is the cure? Well, that brings us right here, from self-focus to praise. See, the journey away from pride isn't about wallowing in shame or self-hatred. Not at all. It's a transformation into something way more beautiful.
Because the goal isn't just to stop being proud. The goal is to become a person of praise. Humility is what shatters that mirror of self-obsession so we can finally look out the window and see the glory of God. It's what shifts our focus from, hey, look at me, to wow, look at him.
And this transformation, it tends to happen in stages. First, there's a shattering. Something breaks our self-perception. Then comes the choice to surrender, to count that old self-made identity as a loss. And then, from that surrender, a genuine life of praise and worship is just born. You see this pattern over and over again. I mean, take King David. Here's a guy called a man after God's own heart, but his pride led him into adultery and then murder. And when he was confronted, he didn't make excuses. He just broke. And in that brokenness, what's his first instinct? To cry out for a clean heart. And that cry leads him directly to a promise of praise. Or look at the Apostle Paul. This guy had the perfect religious resume, right? Status, knowledge, zeal, the whole package. But after he met the risen Christ, he called all of it garbage. He traded his pride in his own performance for pride in the cross, and the cross alone. That is the great exchange.
And that brings us to our final section, the sound of true freedom.
The whole point is this: we are all living one of two stories. It's either the story of pride or the story of praise, and only one of them actually leads to freedom.
You can see the contrast right here. A life of pride is just exhausting. It's a life of constant anxiety, always feeling like you have to prove yourself, always demanding more. But a life of praise, that's a life of rest. The focus is on God, the emotion is joy, the action is giving, and the sound it makes is always pointing away from the self and toward Him.
And this, right here, is the ultimate takeaway. The fight against pride isn't about trying to become smaller or worthless. It's about becoming free. Free from the crushing weight of having to be our own greatness. Humility is what finally opens the floodgates for joy to rush in and for worship to just overflow naturally from a grateful heart.
So this whole journey is really about one thing: dethroning the self. But here's the thing. That throne was never, ever meant to be empty. So the final question we have to ask ourselves is this: once it's vacant, what true and lasting glory is finally free to take its rightful place?